I found the real Loch Ness monster. It knew I was watching. I didn't go to Loch Ness to chase myths. At least that's what I told the people funding me. It was supposed to be the final leg of a freshwater documentary series. Sonar tracking, predator movement, submerged caves, that sort of thing. The loch made sense. It was deep, quiet, and already very famous. I pitched it as a way to end the series with atmosphere. But there were easier places to film. Places where we'd actually find what we were looking for. So why here? Because of something I saw when I was a kid. No one else did. But it left me thinking too long about what lives below the threshold where light dies. We set out with a lean crew. 4 people. All of us living on a research barge for 8 days. Nothing fancy. Repurposed fishery platform, decent sonar, rigid hull dinghy, emergency comms, satellite drone rig, the usual. Griff handled logistics, field ops, ex-military, probably. He didn't say much about it. Mira ran the sonar and audio. Smart, quiet, and far better at reading machines than people. And Ness, our researcher, she joined late, claimed she'd done prior studies on the trench patterns in the loch. Her notebooks were filled with coordinates, local references, and sonar slices she said were never officially published. I didn't ask where she got them. She worked like someone with nothing left to prove. The days were repetitive. Map, float, scan, do it again. The surface never changed. Gray water, gray sky, one rolling over the other. The barge creaked a lot, and nothing ever echoed back from the loch except birds and mist. That kind of silence can scrape at you if you let it. We worked the deep trench lines, 200 meters, 300 meters down. There were pockets where the sonar would drop out for a few seconds, like something absorbed the signal. But Mira chalked it up to temperature inversion and sediment. I believed her. Until the 3rd night. I was reviewing footage after dinner. Our drones had been sweeping close to the waterline. We weren't expecting much, just shoreline cuts, depth shots. Around timestamp 1:24:53, I caught something strange. A ripple. Isolated. The rest of the water was still, but one line pulled against the direction of the surface pattern. Just for a moment, I slowed it down and followed it frame by frame. There was a moment, maybe 2 seconds, where something thin, just beneath the surface, followed the drone's path from below. Long, uneven. I couldn't get a clear image, but the angle was wrong for it to be debris or fish. It was tracking the drone. I paused on the last visible frame and stared. Beneath the light distortion and movement blur, there was a shimmer, round and sharp, reflective like wet glass. Nothing else in the shot had the right curve for it. I didn't know what it was, but it caught the light the way an eye would. Not glancing, just there, set in place, still. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. It felt like a fluke. One of those weird underwater tricks that looks more like than it is. I filed it, saved the clip, and labeled it Unconfirmed 01. That night, the wind died early. The water looked like black slate. The surface unbroken from one end of the loch to the other. Griff and Ness had turned in. Mira was still up, sitting at the sonar station, tapping the sides of the monitor with her knuckle.
Sector B's acting weird again,
she muttered. How so? She didn't answer right away, just moved the scroll dial backwards a few notches, then played the return signal again. 1 pass.
A single mass moving at depth. No shape, just density. Not clustered, not diffused. One body. Moved like it was following a contour. Kept its height the whole way through. "It didn't flex with the terrain," she finally said. "Something that size should have reacted to the slope, but it held elevation, even with pressure changes."
"Could be a technical echo," I offered.
"Maybe, but that would spike the noise floor," she pointed. "It didn't. It knew where it was going."
Her voice wasn't excited. It was flat, thoughtful, like she didn't want to be right. After she went below deck, I stayed on the stern platform, shot some night footage, let the camera run wide while I scanned the shore. The fog had dropped lower. Only a thin strip of trees was visible across the loch. Everything else was dark. I remember tapping the focus ring and catching my own reflection in the viewfinder. That's when I felt it. Not a sound. Vibration. The deck shifted under me, not from the water, from underneath. Once, then again, like someone knocking from below with a fist too large for fingers. I crouched, set the camera down, and pressed my palm to the deck. The wood was cold, still, but I didn't imagine it. Someone had contacted the hull. It wasn't a rock. It couldn't have been the current. It was actual contact. I aimed the camera over the railing and tried to catch the ripple. The surface stayed clean. A thin veil of mist hovered above the water, like it hadn't decided yet whether to rise or fall. The camera glitched. Not for long, just a flash of scrambled pixels. But in that flicker, just one frame, I saw something move. Something round and pale and perfectly still. I paused it, advanced it frame by frame. Nothing. Then the flicker again. And there it was. The reflection was clearer this time. Not a head, not a body. Just the curve of a single wet surface, watching from the waterline. Still and centered, framed like it had been chosen for the shot. I didn't sleep, didn't talk about it in the morning. I didn't find there to be any point. It would sound ridiculous, wouldn't it? I found the Loch Ness Monster. We found Griff's tether line hanging slack off the drone winch. He swore he'd locked it. No footage from the drone lasts 2 whole hours. Mira said the hydrophone picked up something unfamiliar. Not mechanical. Something organic, with a large lung capacity. And it was too slow to be human. She played it back once. One long exhale. No bubbles. We didn't know what it was, but I had a better question. Why did it stay so close to the surface? Just far enough not to be seen. Why did it let us know it was there? We shifted our camp deeper into the trench corridor. The coordinates Ness had marked in her notebook lined up with the denser parts of the loch. Long, cold valleys where the sediment didn't behave like it was supposed to. Mira said the sonar pulse kept fading faster there, like something was absorbing it mid-wave. She tried recalibrating twice. No difference. On the 5th morning, we reviewed the overnight hydrophone data. There was a sound we hadn't heard before. Not a vocalization, not quite. More like something resonating under pressure. Low enough to slip under ambient noise, but patterned, repeating every 92 seconds. We isolated it and replayed the waveform. It wasn't random. The tail of the signal curled into itself like it was answering its own echo. We deployed the submersible rig that afternoon. Low-res camera pod tethered to a line of thermal sensors and stabilized by ballast fins. The loch was calm. The water colder than before. Ness adjusted the exposure settings while Mira ran the audio live.
Griff stayed at the bow with binoculars, not watching the water, watching the tree line. "You see something?" I asked. "No," he said. Then, "I don't like the silence here." The screen showed layers of deep green, then black. The cable played out smooth. 80 meters, 120. No hits. I kept waiting for the pressure to show interference, for something to distort the feed. Then it changed. Just past the 200-meter mark, a shape moved through frame. Not close, not clear. Just a shift in the contrast. Not too fast, not invasive, just a glide that pressed everything around it slightly outward. "Stop it right there," I said. Ness froze the frame. We enhanced. Nothing. We didn't need to. On the edge of the shot, just near the horizon line, where the light lost contrast, something had paused. Long curve, no shadow, no limbs. It wasn't swimming. It was holding position. That was the last frame before the feed died. The screen went black. Mira checked the tether, still intact. No physical damage, just signal loss. We debated pulling it back up. Griff said to wait, let the depth pressure stabilize, and try again in an hour. Mira kept the hydrophone live. I reviewed the capture segment again. Something was wrong with the shape. Not its size. The length made sense if it was a sturgeon or an oarfish, but the proportions were off. Too wide near the middle, but there was no locomotion, no propulsion, nothing pushing it forward or back. It just moved, and then it didn't. We decided to recover the rig before sunset. Griff volunteered to suit up and dive. He didn't trust the auto-retrieval system. Said if the tether failed, we'd lose everything. The water was clean, visibility about 8 meters, cold enough to chew bone. He prepped the oxygen tank, wired up the GoPro, and dropped below without much fanfare. The rest of us watched the monitors. The tether tracked clean. No spikes, no tangle. The GoPro streamed back black screen footage of descending murk. The LED rig flicked on at around 50 meters, flaring back off algae dust. Mira kept the sonar running. I watched the feed. 10 minutes passed, and then 11. Griff's voice came through the radio. "Touching the rig now. No damage to the cable. I'm securing the pod. Reeling up." A pause. Then he said, "Something's down here." We didn't speak. Mira leaned towards the mic. "Clarify that. Visual?" Silence. "Griff, do you copy?" The line stayed open. Nothing but his breathing. The GoPro twitched. Not a cut, a twitch, like the lens was yanked sideways. Light strobed against something smooth and gray-green. Curved like a shoulder, but wider. It passed directly in front of the camera. No fin, no gill line, just a brief shimmer of pressure displacement. The line jerked. The sonar lit up. Sharp contact about 15 meters from Griff's depth. Then, nothing. We pulled the tether faster than we should have. No resistance. Griff didn't come up with it. All we got was the pod. The retrieval rig was intact. The camera arm cracked. The oxygen tank was still strapped to it. Harness shredded. Metal torn in a long, uneven coil. Like something had twisted it off, not cut it. There was no blood. We scanned the water for 6 hours. The shoreline, the trees, the sonar, the drone grid. Nothing. We called his name on every channel, fired the distress beacon, sent the backup drone along the tether's original path. The GoPro's footage stopped just after the flash. Nothing else, just black water and loose particles of dust. No debris, no ascent. That night, Mira played back the hydrophone logs from the hour Griff was in the water. The pattern was back, the repeating signal, except this time, it wasn't steady. It was pulsing in sync with something else. The mic caught on overlapping rhythm, a breathing pattern. One intake, pause, exhale, then a sonar ping, as if something was answering itself. None of us slept. Mira tried adjusting the gains levels. Ness sat near the audio readout, not speaking. I caught her tracing a pattern on the table with her fingernail, over and over. Circles. She said she recognized the pattern from her old files. I asked what it meant. She looked up, almost surprised I was there. "It's not hiding," she said. I think it's trying to show itself." Griff was gone. We ran the emergency signal on loop through the shortwave, but the coast station didn't respond. Either the relay was too weak or the fog was blocking satellite coverage. Mira said we'd get a stronger bounce if we pushed west towards Invermoriston. But the boat's GPS, it was glitching. We tried turning on the inlet. 5 minutes later, we were back where we started. Ness said the lock could do that. I asked what she meant. She went quiet. We gave up trying to find a signal by mid-afternoon. The air was still, trees like outlines, too far off to be real. Mira reran the sonar grid out of habit. It picked up the same return ping every 7 minutes, but never from the same place. It moved. Sometimes it was 20 meters off our stern, sometimes 150 to port. Never direct, always circling. I watched the screen for hours. The return pulse didn't fade the way it should have. Normally, the further out it hit, the more it would blur, fragment. But this one stayed solid, like it adjusted for distance. Mira didn't say anything about it, but she noticed it too. She sat back from the screen around hour 3 and didn't come back. At dusk, Ness told me she'd never been here before. Not on this trip, not with us. She'd taken a different boat 2 years ago. No camera crew, no permits. She said she'd found an inlet that wasn't on any maps. Just northeast of the second trench bend. Said the water changed when you crossed into it. It got warmer. The sonar went dead. GPS too. But everything felt still. Like the loch was waiting to breathe. That's where she wanted to go now. "You think that's where it lives?" I said. She shook her head. "I think that's where it waits." We followed her coordinates the next morning. No one objected. Mira looked exhausted. I hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the GoPro, the flicker, the wide green-gray shape moving through the frame with no fins and no face. Just mass and quiet, a kind of gravity that didn't pull, but leaned on you. The boat edged into the cove around noon. The inlet opened like a black throat. Steep rocks rising on both sides. Moss-covered, damp. It narrowed fast. We cut the motor and drifted in. The trees bent forward over the water like they were trying to listen. The temperature shifted. Upward. Not by much, just a few degrees, but enough to notice. Enough to feel it on the back of your teeth. Mira said nothing, but she clutched the edge of the boat hard enough to color her knuckles. The sonar died just before we hit the rock shelf. There was something carved into the cliff wall. Faded, worn, deep from water and weather. Hundreds of marks, circles, eye shapes. Some just gouges, hundreds of them. The entire face of the cliff was lined with them, like something had scratched from inside out. Ness stood at the bow. She was whispering, just under her breath. I asked what she was saying. "They're not names," she replied. "They're sightings. It's how it keeps count."
Of what? She didn't look away from the cliff.
"Who looked back?"
The water was shallow here. We dropped anchor, but it never hit bottom. Like the loch was pretending to be solid and hoped we wouldn't notice. Mira pulled the hydrophone up again, checked the frequency band. No signal. Then she pressed her headset to her ear and paused. "It's playing the same return loop," she said. "It's still moving, but the timing's different." She ran it through the waveform. The pulse was off now, slightly delayed, like it was listening. We argued about diving. Ness said it needed to be seen, said no one had made it this far before, that if we didn't go down, we'd lose the chance. I told her we didn't even know if it was there. She said it was already here. That night, she left without telling us. The suit was gone, the backup mask too, the small flashlight, one of the weighted vests. Mira found her notebook folded on the radio console, marked open to a map of the inlet with a line drawn downward past the last listed depth. The final note written beneath the line: "Don't blink." We waited 5 hours, never found her, never heard from her again. I reviewed back the thermal drone footage again, and again. Nothing. Until 3:48:12. Half a frame, the edge of the inlet, one shape, head barely above the waterline. Still, round, no face, just the suggestion of eyes. Not like it had surfaced, like it had never left. I stayed one more day, not for Ness, not for footage. I just wanted to know if it would come closer. Mira stopped speaking around midday. She stayed near the bow, headset on, not recording. At one point, I asked if she was okay. She nodded. That was it. When I checked the hydrophone later, the recorder had been unplugged. She'd been listening to nothing, or to something that wasn't using sound anymore. The sonar never came back. The drone's compass showing us turning in circles, even when we were still. The water didn't ripple. The mist never lifted. It was like the loch had folded itself into a smaller room, and we were just pacing the corners. I thought about diving. I even suited up once. The idea of it, going down there without knowing if the depth would ever level out, if I'd ever see a bottom, or just keep sinking, kept my legs locked to the deck. At 3:17 a.m., Mira walked into the water. She didn't make a sound, didn't take the dinghy, just stepped off the stern, headset still around her neck, and disappeared without resistance. I tried to stop her, but it didn't feel like a choice. She was just done being seen by whatever was out there. I didn't see her surface. The next morning, the fog thinned just enough for me to glimpse the shoreline. I turned the barge toward it and didn't look back. The water stayed flat, no resistance, no current. Whatever was watching had gone still. Or maybe it had already moved past me. I didn't feel relief when I reached the marina, just a numb, ringing kind of clarity, like something had just stepped out of view and would stay out of view from now on. I left the barge behind, didn't explain, didn't retrieve the gear. No one asked questions. The footage was still in the hard drives. I backed it up and told myself I'd go through it later. I didn't. It was until weeks later that someone else did. The footage went up anonymously. I never figured out who posted it. Maybe someone salvaged the gear. Maybe the loch wanted it shared. It doesn't matter. The title was baked. Click heavy, all caps. Real Loch Ness monster sighting. Unexplained footage. I didn't watch it at first, but it spread. Clips, breakdowns, slowed down edits, reaction videos, millions of views, and in the comments, again and again,
Did anyone see the eye behind him at 1412? Rewatch the reflection at the waterline. It's tracking him. There's something breathing in the audio background. Loop it. It doesn't move like an animal. It waits for him to stop looking. I've unplugged everything. Laptop gone, phone wiped, no internet. But the video keeps playing. Somehow. The log shows up in my dreams now. But never the same way twice. Sometimes it's a flooded hallway. Sometimes a window behind my reflection. Once it was the black of my own pupils. I don't see the eye anymore. But I know it's still there. Because I haven't blinked since I woke up.